Joining us now on the Comcast Business Hotline, where every day business is a big day. Let Comcast Business help you move forward with what's next. His work on the Inquirer, it's incredible. Experience the new look of Inquirer Sports, where fans can read, watch, listen to their favorite reporters and columnists. Go to Inquirer.com/sports. I think the only man in the history of the universe to have asked a question where Nick Sirianni could only answer with one word.
It was shocking.
Jeff McLane joins us. Jeff, what's going on, man? Good morning.
Hey, guys. Typically, I don't like to ask questions where there's only one word answer, but I think in this case,
I know you don't, and it's why you're so good at your job. But it was like Nick Sirianni, of all people, I don't think I've ever heard him give an answer that did not have at least 50 words in it.
Well, there was a pause, and then there was a one-word answer, and I already clipped it, Jeff, for my class at Temple in the spring. So I already because I love to play that for them little tips like that, and I thought that was a great line of questioning.
In case people are wondering, Jeff asked if there's any chance the play calling duties can be handed over. Now, we read your tweet while you explained why you asked the question, but I would like you to give our listening audience a chance just to explain yourself why you asked that specific question for Nick Sirianni on Monday.
Yeah, I mean, I asked. He talked about there being during this mini buy. He had talked about trying to find solutions, and I asked, well, if in terms of finding solutions, was one of them changing the play calling in any way? And I say in any way because, it doesn't necessarily have to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to take all of play calling away from Kevin Patullo and hand it to me or hand it to the quarterback coach or whatever. Because previously, in 2023, they kind of started the process of like stripping Sean Desai, then defensive coordinator, of his play calling duties by just kind of taking third down away from him, for instance, and that involves kind of like game planning, and essentially to some degree, the calling that had happened during the course of the game. And I've seen kind of before Doug Peterson, for instance, kind of gave some of his play calling to then I think it was just pass game coordinator Press Taylor. So it's not always just one person. It can be collective to some degree, which I don't think that's anywhere near ideal. And then, of course, in 2021, Nick had, given his play calling that he had, I guess, through the first 7 or 8 games of the season to then offensive coordinator Shane Steichen. Of course, we all know what happens from that point forward. So this isn't unprecedented for Nick to do something like this, and that's why I felt it was necessary to ask it. I'm not saying in no way, shape, or form that I think that Kevin should be stripped of it. That's not my job. My job is to get answers, but to ask pertinent questions. And I felt in that case it did, considering how he has, I think it's fair to say, struggled. And I'm not putting all the blame on the offense.
Sure.
Anywhere near at the foot, at his feet. It is collective. I agree with what Nick Sirianni says, and certainly as the offensive coordinator, as the head coach, and of course Jalen Hurts. When you look at the quarterback, they're probably the 3 biggest that have the large pieces of pies, and when it comes to responsibility, thus they're going to receive more criticism when things aren't going well, and they're going to receive more praise when things are going well. So, but that's kind of just the thought process I had when asking that question.
When you look at how the defense goes about their work, and you look at how the offense goes about their work, is it a much different approach? A much different approach from top down, like how they communicate, how they practice, how they work, how they go about their business day, or as a organization, is it pretty similar?
Well, if we're talking just about the coaching staffs, yeah, it's a little different because Nick doesn't really have much say over defense. I mean, he's certainly involved. He's head coach. He can decide what Vic does, but he pretty much gives Vic almost complete autonomy over that unit. Whereas the offense, right, that's where Nick, that's his kind of forte. That's his side of the ball. So he's very much involved in that. And certainly with Kevin, they have this long-standing relationship of work and partnership in terms of working together. So, yeah, I'd say there's probably more, and I think that's generally how it goes for most teams, because the quarterback's coach is involved typically, and now you have pass game coordinators. Like there's definitely more people that are involved, the coaches involved in game planning and everything that is involved in that. Defense, everyone is involved, but I think especially with the Eagles, you have a figurehead. Not figurehead. You have a leader in Vic Fangio that just kind of has taken the horns by that, and that's it.
Jeff, last time we had you on, it was after the first loss of the season to the Denver Broncos. This is our first chance talking to you after losing to the Giants. Is the 2023 feeling starting to spread in the locker room?
By 2023 feeling, I guess that kind of refers to what I had reported then about just being the most miserable team, and how that kind of affected the obviously what they were doing. No, I don't think so. From what I gathered, and I did talk about this in my podcast. I felt like after the loss to the Broncos in that home locker room at the Link, it did feel like someone had been shot, and I felt like, well, that was odd to some extent because they're just 4-1, and it was a bad loss. I think that might have had a little bit to do with the fact that they just hadn't been losing much, and they hadn't lost in a calendar year with Jalen Hurts as the quarterback, at least in a game that he finished. So I think that was, but it also might have been a kind of like a collective, like coming to grips with like, oh, okay, those first 4 games where everyone was telling us that we weren't really as good as the record indicated. Maybe we aren't close to that. And I think maybe that had kind of spilled over to the week of practice, the short week of practice, and that's why part of the reason why they didn't perform in New York.
Are you more surprised that the offense has struggled with being able to run the ball, or that the offense has struggled to be able to throw the football effectively and sustain a passing attack throughout the course of 4 quarters?
Well, probably neither, because I guess we were talking about this all offseason. Like, this is my first question to Saquon Barkley when he signed his contract extension was, are you prepared for defenses to be kind of keyed on trying to stop you? And what are you going to do to counter that? I mean, now that's not all anywhere near all on him, and that's probably a better question for the coaches, which I'd ask as well. But the point being that, like, I've been around enough, like this is what happened to the Eagles in 2022. They're going to take away what they did well and going to the Super Bowl there, and they're going to, take away what they did well and winning the Super Bowl. And I just knew that defenses weren't going to allow Saquon to run again for 2,000 yards. And again, everything the Eagles did last year, for the most part, was built off of that. And it's easier. It's easier to stop one guy than it is an offense, a pass offense that has multiple people. Yeah, there's more involved with it than just the one running back. You have all the blockers and stuff like that. But I just felt like that was going to be very hard for them. But the pass game, the struggles there don't surprise me because, again, we've seen this now since Jalen Hurts has been the quarterback. And they've just repeatedly have done this. Like, they don't want to have this pass-heavy offense with Jalen. You don't want to put too much on his shoulder. He's a very good quarterback. He's one of the best in the league. He's won a Super Bowl. We're not denying him any of that. But as time has showed, if you look at the numbers, when Jalen is asked to drop back a certain percent of the pass plays, that's when the sacks increase. That's when the turnovers increase. And that's what we've seen these last 2 games.
Jeff, last year, the Week 5 bye, the story comes out that the offensive lineman went to Nick Sirianni. They changed the offensive approach. They also benefited, obviously, from a week of not playing football because they were banged up. They needed to get healthy after that Buccaneers game. I'll ask you, what do you believe will be the story coming out of this mini-bye?
I guess wait and see. I think one of the things with that narrative, too, is like Nick and them, they were going in that direction. I mean, it helped that Lanning and Lane talked to them, but that was just kind of like, it's taken on a life of its own sort of thing. But and it is important, and I'm not saying denying that part of the history of what changed the 2024 season. But, I'm sure wherever direction they're going to end up going, and I think it's more on the offensive side that you'll probably see changes to some extent. Defensively, I just felt like that game, with the fact that Jalen Carter, they didn't know up until game time he wasn't going to play. That doesn't excuse the performance, and then you lose Quinyon Mitchell, and you're already kind of down Nolan Smith, et cetera. Again, I'm not excusing that performance because there are areas in that side of the ball that are worrisome, especially at cornerback. But on offense, I think they need to do a little more in terms of changes, and I think, yeah, they got to get the run game going. They have to find some way to get that going, and I feel like to do that, they got to maybe do a little bit more of what they used to do, which is under center. and then build play action off that. And we've seen those numbers down in both those regards. The problem with the under center game sometimes is they get too predictable sometimes, and that's what Lane Johnson had talked about after the Giants game. So they just have to be more cognizant of not tipping off tendencies to defenses. And there's a lot that goes into that. And I'm not saying this is going to happen, and all of a sudden the offense is going to return look like it did last year or even the year before. I don't know. They have a tough defense this Sunday. And a good defensive coordinator. It could be tough sledding again for this team. It could take a while. And I'm not saying it's not going to happen because we've seen it happen before. They deserve the benefit of the doubt, and they're still 4-2. And if you look around the rest of the league, there are a lot of teams that are still in search of identity or in search of who they are, and whatever. I do feel like things are definitely not close to what they were even when they were 2-2 last year.
Jeff, we appreciate the time as always, man. Keep up the great work. Keep up asking Nick Sirianni the tough questions. We appreciate you as always.
Thank you, Jeff.
And we'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
There he is, our man Jeff McLane on the Comcast Business Hotline.
Hey, guys. Andrew Salciunas, host of Kincade and Salciunas. Just want to thank you for checking out all of our great videos that we have on our YouTube channel every single day. Make sure, if you can, please like and subscribe and check out all the videos that we have on our YouTube channel, whether it's for us, Kincade and Salciunas, of course, our midday show, as well as Unfiltered with Bill and Ricky.